हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम अगेन टू एशियाज यंग आईएएस। हम है स्टैंडर्ड 10 एसएससी बोर्ड महाराष्ट्र स्टेट बोर्ड के इंग्लिश सब्जेक्ट को लेकर हमने पहली पोएम जो है वेयर द माइंड इज विदाउट फियर बाय रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर का एक्सप्लेनेशन पिछले सेशन में किया। वी अंडरस्टूड कि ये इसका क्या कॉन्टेक्स्ट है, इसके क्या मैसेजेस है, अंडरलाइंग मैसेजेस क्या है, और बहुत ब्यूटीफुल वर्ड्स में टैगोर ने एक नहीं काफी सारे अंडरलाइंग मैसेजेस दिए हैं थ्रू द पोएम, नॉट ओनली फॉर इंडिया बट फॉर पीपल अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड। ठीक है, हमने इसके मीनिंग्स भी डिस्कस किए और हमने थोड़ा बहुत ये समझा कि कैसे आज के दौर में वी लिविंग इन 2020 इन द टाइम्स ऑफ कोविड-19 जहां पे द वर्ल्ड इज अफेक्टेड बाय अ वायरस और सब लोग लॉकडाउन में है, कैसे आप एक प्रेयर लिखेंगे टू द ऑलमाइटी और आप क्या चाहेंगे। कैन यू फाइंड एनी काइंड ऑफ पैरेलल्स बिटवीन दिस पोएम एंड आवर प्रेजेंट सिनेरियो। ये वी लेफ्ट देयर लास्ट, you all were supposed to think about it and I hope आपने कुछ नोट्स बनाए और लिखे होंगे। This is going to help you in your personal response। एग्जाम में जब पर्सनल रिस्पॉन्स के ऊपर 2 मार्क के क्वेश्चंस आते हैं where you are expected to write आपके क्या व्यूज है, आपके क्या थॉट्स है कोई टॉपिक को लेकर। आई थिंक ये जो करंट सिनेरियो है, जो करंट इशू है आज जो दुनिया में चल रहा है, उसके बारे में अगर आप लिखते हैं तो चांसेस आर कि आपको अच्छा स्कोर मिलेगा फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन, राइट। मूविंग ऑन, we're now going to start with the workshop जो कि पोएम के पीछे questions होते हैं। We are going to discuss the answers. In your notebook, write down lines from the poem as a proof for the following. So I want you to take a pen or a pencil और हो सके तो make another notebook for yourself जिसमें आप अलग से इसके आंसर्स लिखेंगे। अगर आपको अभी फिलहाल कुछ करना है और यहीं पे मार्क करके लिखना है, take a pencil and use it, right? The first one, Tagore wishes for a nation where people are truthful. आपको ये बताना है कि पोयम में कौन सी लाइन है जो ये प्रूफ है जिसकी कि ये टैगोर कह रहे हैं Tagore wishes for a nation where people are truthful. Which line in the poem is giving you proof कि Tagore is wishing for a nation जहाँ पे लोग truthful हो? So let's go back here. Where words come out from the depth of truth. जब लोगों के words आए without any kind of corruption, without any kind of animosity, when they're speaking honestly with full sincerity, सच्चाई को जब वो लोग रख के आगे बढ़े, जब उनके words आए, words जब आते हैं बाहर मीनिंग आपकी सोच भी सच्ची होती है। So when you're thinking truthfully, your words will come out full truthfully, right? So इसका आंसर है where the words come out from the depths of truth. Moving on, second, the poet would like everyone to work hard to reach their goal and in the long run to reach perfection. हमको बताना है कौन सी लाइन है पोएम में which is telling us the poet would like everyone to work hard to reach their goal and in the long run to reach perfection. पोएट चाहता है कि सब लोग मेहनत करें और अपने गोल तक पहुंचे और लॉन्ग रन दूर की सोचे तो परफेक्शन ऐसे इजीली नहीं मिल जाता। यू हैव टू रियली वर्क हार्ड, इट्स अ लॉन्ग टर्म प्रोसेस, तो लॉन्ग रन में आपको परफेक्शन मिलेगा। तो ये इस कौन सी लाइन है पोएम की जो बताती है, जो प्रूफ है कि पोएट चाहता है कि लोग मेहनत करे और लॉन्ग रन में परफेक्शन तक पहुंचे। इसके बाद वाला where tireless striving stretches its arm towards perfection, इसका आंसर ये है। ठीक है, either mark it or write it down. Number 3, the poet wishes that everyone in his country holds his head high in dignity. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. If you notice, जो कि सवाल है जिसका आंसर आपको पूछा गया है उसके सिमिलर वर्ड्स आपको मिलेंगे पोएम में। That's like a hint कि आप समझे कि सवाल में भी ये था head held high, यहाँ पे भी है high. Depth of truth सवाल में भी था, यहाँ पे भी है। Perfection सवाल में भी था, यहाँ पे। This is a clue for you. अगर आपको कोई एक कॉन्फर्मेशन की जरूरत है कि मेरा आंसर सही है कि नहीं, दिस इज फॉर यू टू अंडरस्टैंड कि आप सही है। नेक्स्ट, नंबर 4, द पोएट ड्रीम्स ऑफ अ नेशन वेयर नॉलेज शुड बी फ्री टू ऑल। पोएट चाहता है कि सबको फ्री एजुकेशन मिले, नॉलेज फ्री हो, वेयर नॉलेज इज फ्री। इट्स क्वाइट सिंपल, क्वाइट इजी। इसके लिए आपको इजीली मार्क्स मिल जाएंगे अगर आप ये सही से पॉइंट आउट करेंगे तो। द पोएम इज अ प्रेयर, कैसे आपको पता चलता है कि पोयम प्रेयर है? प्रेयर आप किसको करते हैं? आप द ऑलमाइटी गॉड को करते हैं। तो जब पूरी पोयम में ही इज नॉट रेफरिंग टू द गॉड एक्सेप्ट फॉर हियर वेयर द माइंड इज लेड फॉरवर्ड बाय थी, ये अजम्पशन है, अंडरलाइंग मीनिंग है कि ये हम बोलेंगे कि ये गॉड को रेफर कर रहे हैं, बट डायरेक्टली अगर हम समझने जाए कि दिस इज अ प्रेयर इनटू दैट हेवन ऑफ फ्रीडम, माय फादर लेट माय कंट्री अवेक। My father here refers to God, the Almighty. So here he is making a direct prayer to God, saying, into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. ठीक है, तो ये हो गए हमारे 5. Let's move on to number 2, which is match. कॉलम ए से कॉलम बी को मैच करना है। पहले हम लोग यहाँ पे दोनों कॉलम्स को अच्छे से पढ़ेंगे, उसके बाद आई विल एक्सपेक्ट यू टू राइट योर आंसर्स विद अ पेंसिल हियर एंड गो थ्रू दिस अगेन, और मे बी मेक सेंटेंसेस एंड ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कि आप इसको आगे के सवालों के जवाब में कैसे इनकलकेट करेंगे। दीज आर इंपॉर्टेंट वर्ड्स, ठीक है। नंबर 1, द हेड इज हेल्ड हाई. नंबर 2, नैरो डोमेस्टिक वॉल्स. नंबर 3, नॉलेज इज फ्री. Number 4, depth of truth. Number 5, mind is without fear. Number 6, stretched its arms. Number 7, clear stream of reason. Number 8, dead habits. Number 9, ever widening thought and action. ठीक है, ये 9 यहाँ है। अब हम यहाँ के 9 को पढ़ेंगे। Column B, a fearless person, sincerity of heart, a person with self-respect and proud of possessing it, narrow-mindedness, education is given to all, dried in fertile land of sands, clear thinking, aim at perfection, broadening the outlook and attitude. The head is held high. इसका मतलब है कि आप बहुत डिग्निटी के साथ और बहुत ही प्राउडली अपने आप पे गर्व महसूस करते हैं। आपका सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट बहुत इनफ है, मीनिंग आप कहीं और से अचीव नहीं कर, आप कहीं और सीख नहीं करते हो कि आपको कोई अच्छा बोले तो आपको अच्छा लगे, आपको कोई बुरा बोले तो आपको बुरा लगे। यू आर कंप्लीट विद इन योर सेल्फ एंड फुल ऑफ डिग्निटी। आपका हेड बहुत कॉन्फिडेंटली, बहुत ही डिग्निटी के साथ हेल्ड ऊपर है, कोई शर्म नहीं है। इसका आंसर है सी, अ पर्सन विद सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट एंड प्राउड ऑफ पोजेसिंग इट। ठीक है। नंबर 2, नैरो डोमेस्टिक वॉल्स। अगेन ये इसका क्लू ये है कि जो आंसर है उसमें भी वर्ड नैरो है। नैरो माइंडेडनेस, कम सोच रखने वाले, जो कि बहुत ही, जिनके आउटलुक ज्यादा वाइडेंड नहीं है, जो बहुत एक ही तरीके का सोचते हैं, जो बहुत कंजर्वेटिव सोच रखते हैं, जो अपनी सोच के आगे किसी और की सोच को एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते हैं। दोज आर नैरो माइंडेडनेस, नैरो डोमेस्टिक वॉल्स। नंबर 3, नॉलेज इज फ्री, मतलब एजुकेशन सभी को मिले, राइट। आई होप आप लिख रहे हैं हियर, जस्ट राइट इट डाउन। नॉलेज इज फ्री, 3 के आगे ई यहां पे। नंबर 4, डेप्थ ऑफ ट्रूथ, मतलब आप सच्चाई के साथ, ऑनेस्टली, सिंसेरिटी ऑफ हार्ट, सच भी है वो आपका, अगर दिल साफ है, दिल सिंसियर है, तो आप डीप इनसाइड आप भी ट्रूथफुल है। सो नंबर 4 इज बी। नंबर 5, माइंड इज विदाउट फियर, मतलब आप डर नहीं है आपके दिमाग में, तो यू देन बिकम अ fearless person, right? So 5A. Number 6, stretches its arms. Stretches its arm, meaning आप आपके arms को stretch कर रहे हो, बहुत strive कर रहे हो कि आप perfection तक पहुंचे, तो stretches its arms is aim at perfection. 6 is H, clear stream of reason, मतलब clear thinking, आपकी सोच बहुत क्लियर है, कोई डाउट्स नहीं है। 7 इज जी, डेड हैबिट्स, ड्राइड इनफर्टाइल लैंड ऑफ सैंड्स। 8 इज एफ। नंबर 9, एवर वाइडनिंग थॉट एंड एक्शन, ब्रॉडनिंग द आउटलुक एंड एटीट्यूड, कि आप बहुत ही, इसका ऑपोजिट हो गया नैरो माइंडेडनेस का, ब्रॉडनिंग द आउटलुक एंड एटीट्यूड, कंसिडरिंग दूसरों के ओपिनियंस, टॉलरेटिंग अदर्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यूज एंड बिहेवियर्स, दिस इज ब्रॉडनिंग द आउटलुक एंड एटीट्यूड। ठीक है, तो 9 इज आई। तो ये हो गया हमारा सेकंड। लेट्स मूव ऑन, नंबर 3। ओके, अब हम जाएंगे आंसर द फॉलोइंग क्वेश्चंस इन योर ओन वर्ड्स। 5 सवाल है, ज्यादा डिटेल में आपको आंसर्स नहीं देने हैं। डोंट गो राइटिंग पैराग्राफ्स एंड पैराग्राफ्स और इवन लाइन्स एंड लाइन्स। 2 to 3 lines maximum should be enough. Number 1, how is the world broken into fragments? आपको बताना है कि अकॉर्डिंग टू टैगोर हाउ इज द वर्ल्ड ब्रोकन इनटू फ्रैगमेंट्स. टैगोर मानते हैं कि बहुत सारे डिविजन्स है, तो इसका सिंपल आंसर ये होगा, द वर्ल्ड इज ब्रोकन इनटू फ्रैगमेंट्स ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ रिलीजन, कास्ट, race, creed, gender, etc. That's it. Explain what the tireless striving should be for. According to Tagore, tireless striving should be for people to achieve perfection without giving up. Where come out, यहाँ पे आपको add करना है, there is a missing word, where words come out from the depth of truth. There's a little error here, just add the word words यहाँ पे where और come के बीच में. So the question is where words come out from the depth of truth. Explain in your own words. आपको समझाना है इसका क्या मतलब है. Where words come out from the depth of truth. इसका मतलब है where words come out from the depth of truth means, according to me, means that people do not fear speaking the truth and they speak with sincerity of heart, with no corruption or malice in their hearts. That's it. Who is thee in the poem? What does the poet appeal to thee to do? Thee कौन है poem में? Thee here in the poem refers to the Almighty God. The poet appeals to thee. What does he appeal? He appeals to thee to help the people lead into the heaven of freedom, so that the countrymen, so that the people awake with good thoughts, good words and good actions. Okay? We are not going too much in the detail to write down the answers. This much is enough. Now, write in your notebook your own response and justify where needed. Now, here is your personal response. यहाँ पे आपको थोड़े लंबे answers लिखने पड़ेंगे, longer than here. These are going to be 2 marks, sometimes 3 marks, depending on how much of the topic is going to be covered. तो यहाँ पे आपको long answers लिखना पड़ेगा. I'm going to help you frame the answers. Eventually, आप आपके answers खुद frame करेंगे. Okay? ठीक है. Now we are moving on. Write in your notebook your own response and justify where needed. Okay? Question number 1. Is the poem a prayer for India alone? No, the poem is not only a prayer for India alone, but for the world at large. What Rabindranath Tagore is praying for or wishing for in the poem is not restricted to a certain nationality of people. It is in fact open to all kinds of people who may be struggling within themselves or even outside. So the poem is actually a reflection of a prayer for the world across the globe. Number 2, what should the words we speak reflect? The words we speak should reflect sincerity of heart, should reflect truthfulness, should reflect our ever-widening thought and broadening outlook and our attitude towards perfection, should reflect tireless striving to achieve perfection, should reflect our scientific approach to living, should reflect freedom, should reflect freedom of thought, should reflect freedom of speech. So the words we speak must reflect positivity in order for us to have peace and contentment of the mind, where our minds remain without fear, and therefore then our actions also become fearless. Next, moving on. What should people keep on widening? How can it be done? People should keep on widening their thought and action. And in order to widen your thought and action, you can't be doing it just by sitting idle. So you can travel, but if you can't travel, then you can read up a lot. You can watch a lot of interesting videos online, which will help you, from across the globe, from different cultures, from people who are not like you, and understand and empathize with them. So in order to widen your thought and action, you should first become free and get rid of your prejudices and have a very empathizing approach, a very tolerant approach to people and their cultures and their attitudes and their behaviors. So it can be done either by traveling, by reading, by watching, by meeting, by communicating, by talking, by thinking, It can be done in all these ways, right? Moving on. From what darkness of night should our nation awake? A nation should awake from the darkness of illiteracy, from the darkness of prejudices, from the darkness of evil practices that we had been following, from the darkness of superstitions, from the darkness of corruption. And then when we awaken from these darknesses, we see we are a different world and a different nation altogether. Next, what attributes of Rabindranath Tagore does the poem Prayer reflect? The attributes of Rabindranath Tagore majorly, firstly, they reflect that he's a very patriotic person. So patriotism, the attribute of patriotism in Rabindranath Tagore is clearly reflected in the poem. Secondly, his attribute of a very scientific approach, a very rational approach, his attribute of sincerity, honesty, his attribute of somebody who is very tolerant, somebody who is very well read, somebody who wishes well for others. So his attribute of kindness, generosity, his attribute of patriotism, his attribute of rationality, rationalism, scientific approach are reflected in the poem. Next, what effect does the repetition of the word where at the beginning of each line suggest? So every time the poet is talking where the mind is without fear, where the knowledge is free, where the world is not, what does where in the poem mean? So firstly, it gives a very musical theme to the poem, but more importantly, it is also, since it's a prayer, he's hoping, he's actually visualizing a country or a world where the mind is without fear. So when you're praying, he's actually a very positive in his outlook, where he is sure that he can see the future like this. So where the mind is without fear, where knowledge is free, something that's he's very positive will happen. So where suggests, apart from a very musical, theme to the poem, since it's a prayer, it reflects the visual effect that it gives, for people to understand and visualize a world which is all of that. Now we are moving on to read the poem carefully and complete the table. After the discussion in pairs, one is done for you. Okay. Read the poem carefully and complete the table after the discussion in pairs. One is done for you. So there are concepts in the poem. 6 concepts are given. The present situation and expected ideal situation. Ideal का मतलब है perfect situation. आप जो चाहते हैं, something like a dream situation. Okay. Number 1, mind. Present situation is mind is full of fear. Expected or the ideal situation is fearless mind. Basically, these two are going to be opposites, right? Head. He says head is held high. That's the ideal situation. Head is held high. The present situation is head is bowed down. B-O-W-E-D. Head is bowed down. Head is held high is the ideal situation. Head is bowed down. Head is held high. 3. Knowledge. Knowledge is free and available to all is the expected ideal situation, and present situation is knowledge is limited to a selected few people only. So knowledge is limited to a selected few people. Knowledge is free and available for all. Next, words. Where words are sincere and truthful is the expected ideal situation. Words are sincere and truthful. And here words are insincere and false or corrupted. Okay. Next, habit. Present situation is you have old dead habits, old tradition, old rituals, old customs which are harmful are being followed. Old habits, dead habits, old rituals, old customs, old traditions that are being followed. These are dead habits, and the ideal situation is there is reason and clarity of thought. So your habits are now very rational, very consistent, and very clear. So there's clarity of thought and action. That is your new habit. Thought and action. Thoughts and actions are determined by a broad outlook, ever widening. So that's the ideal situation. Thoughts and actions are determined by a broad outlook. And thoughts and actions are determined by a narrow-minded attitude. That is the present situation. Narrow-minded and broad. Okay, I'm going to repeat it quickly again for you. Head is held high is the ideal situation. Head is bowed down is the present situation. Knowledge is free and available to all is the ideal situation. Knowledge is limited to a selected few people is the present situation. Words are sincere and truthful is the ideal expected situation. Words are insincere and false is the present situation. Habit. There is a reason for clarity and thought. So habits are consistent, clear and rational. And here have old traditional, old ritual, old customs, old habits, dead habits are being followed. Thought and action. Thoughts and actions are determined by a narrow-minded approach is the present situation. And expected ideal situation is thoughts are and actions are determined by a broad, ever-widening outlook. Right? So we are clear here. We are moving on. Complete the following sentences using your own interpretation. Okay, number 1. When the mind is without fear and the head is unbowed, we enjoy dash freedom. Unbowed meaning your head is held high. Bow karna matlab you're taking your head down, and unbowed is the opposite of it, which literally means your head is held high. ठीक है? You enjoy कैसा freedom? Complete freedom. So here the answer is complete freedom. So you can have your own interpretation. This does not have to be a specific answer. I'm just giving you answers that could be, one of those that you can use. When the mind is without fear and head unbowed, we enjoy complete freedom. We enjoy dignified freedom. We enjoy special freedom. We enjoy complete freedom is the most preferred answer, right? Next, when knowledge is free, every citizen enjoys the right to dash and dash. जब knowledge free हो जाएगी, तो every citizen will enjoy right to education. Knowledge free है, तो right to education and learning. When knowledge is free, every citizen enjoys the right to education and learning. When knowledge is free, every citizen enjoys the right to, or you can also add something of your own. When knowledge is free, every citizen enjoys the right to learn and grow, to improve and get better. But the most preferred again I'd say would be to right to education and learning. We can prevent dash injustice when we pull down discriminatory walls of caste, class, religion, etc. जब ये discrimination होता है, division होता है, इसकी जो walls है उसको हम निकाल देंगे, तो कैसा injustice हम pull down करेंगे, हम हटा देंगे. We can prevent social injustice. ठीक है? We can prevent social injustice because these are got to do with society. Constant effort and strife leads to dash. Constant मतलब बार बार effort डालना. Strive करना मतलब मेहनत करना बिना रुके, tirelessly. इससे क्या होता है? Leads to, what will happen? Leads to perfection, and you can also write achieving our goals, leads to success, leads to learning, but the most preferred again I'd say would be leads to perfection or achieving our goals. Logical thinking and reasoning can put a stop to old traditions, old customs, dogmas, superstitions. There are so many things that you can think of. All these are harmful. Evil practices. Okay. Next, Tagore appeals to God to make his country a heaven where people have good thoughts, they say good words and do good deeds. Tagore appeals to God to make his country a heaven where people have good thoughts, say good words and do good deeds or do good actions. So he's hoping for that. Next, moving on, fill in the blanks. Number 1, students should keep themselves aloof from dash. Aloof matlab away or alert, दूर रहना, refrain करना. Students should keep themselves aloof from old harmful traditions. old harmful traditions. Next, when dash, everyone will be literate. When knowledge is free, everyone will be literate. Literate is educated. Opposite of literacy is illiteracy. It is a social duty of every student of the modern world to uproot dash from societies, to uproot narrow-mindedness from the societies. Next, students must develop dash outlook and attitudes. Widening outlook and attitudes, broad outlook and attitudes. Widening or broad, one of the two. In the world of psychophancy, students must have dash. Students must have self-respect. Psychophancy का मतलब है we're living in a world where everybody is so dependent on each other. A lot of dependency happens, especially emotional dependency. तो इसने कुछ कह दिया तो आपको बुरा लग गया, इसने आपका सोशल मीडिया पे कुछ लाइक नहीं किया, फॉलो नहीं किया, आपको बुरा लग गया. In a world of psychophancy where we are just concerned about what others are saying to us, so we are literally run by everybody else's opinions about us. But if you have self-respect, students must develop or have self-respect will be the answer here. But if you have self-respect, then you're not really worried or concerned about what others are thinking about you, right? So it's true that we are living in a world that is full of psychophancy, where people are just so emotionally dependent on, somebody can make your day, somebody can break your day, and you're just so emotionally attached to so many people. But here the poet is saying, if you have self-respect, the poet is implying that, when you become, when he's praying to God, when we become all of that he's praying for, we will develop self-respect. And once we develop self-respect, we're not going to be governed by other people's opinions, right? So it's so important to have your head held high and be dignified and have the self-respect, right? So that's self-respect here. Moving on. Find out the examples of metaphor from the poem. Metaphor is a figure of speech which indicates indirect comparison. तो एक simile होता है which is direct comparison, and एक होता है metaphor which is indirect comparison. Simile में words like and as are used. So if I say, you look just like your father, that's a simile, or you're as good as your father, that's a simile. But a metaphor is going to be like an indirect comparison. कि आप कहीं गए ना, oh my God, you are your father. You're an image of your father. Or you remind me of your father. These are metaphors, which is an indirect comparison. You're still comparing the two, but you're doing the comparison indirectly. So you have to find out examples of metaphor from the poem. Right? So let's go up and have a look at the poem. And see if you can find out a metaphor. Clear stream of reason. Now here reason has been compared to clear stream. Kaisa reason? Clear stream of reason. Right? Dreary desert sand of dead habit. Old habits, dreary desert sand of old habits have been compared to so dead habits, old habits are compared to dreary desert sand. This is again an example of metaphor. Next, moving on, number 7. Almost every line of the poem begins with the word where, and it expects the idealistic country and countrymen. Now work in a group of 6 students and compose your poem regarding ideal school. Begin your lines with the word where. जिससे मैंने आपको कल बताया था कैसे आपको you have to write about an ideal situation for the time that we're living in now in COVID-19, in the pandemic in 2020. This is again a prayer. You have to write a prayer now for an ideal school. I'm going to give you some pointers. You can quickly note them down. Where education is fun. Where learning is enjoyable, where friends are like family, where teachers are respectful, where the corridors feel like home, where homework is not a burden, where the playground is also a learning area, where the staff are like friends, where respect is not only given but also taken, where the principal is not authoritative but like a guide, where perfection is sought by discussion, where education, knowledge, learning, growth go together. That's a hinter for you to write your poem regarding the ideal school. Right? Now we're moving on. Read the poem, write an appreciation of the poem in about 12 to 15 sentences. So this is very important. ये definitely आता है exam में. आपको pointers दी है again. You have to write about the title, the poet, the rhyme scheme, the favorite line, theme, central idea, figures of speech, special features, which is the type of poem, language, tone, implied meaning, why you like or dislike the poem. So the title of the poem is Where the Mind is Without Fear. The poet is Rabindranath Tagore. The theme of the central idea is that it's a prayer, essentially. It's a prayer to the Almighty, to God. Tagore is asking God to awaken his country into a heaven of freedom where there is total freedom of good thoughts, good words and good actions. He's hoping that all the superstitions, the dogmas, the evil practices, the narrow-mindedness are all converted into a very scientific and rational approach to a very ever-widening broad outlook, which is, seeking perfection. And people should be educated, literate, so that their thoughts and actions will be determined by the literacy level. And he's hoping for sincerity and honesty at heart of the people, which will reflect in the everyday lives. So Tagore is essentially hoping for, he's a very patriotic man, he's essentially hoping for a very, for something that will not only help his country achieve independence, but he's thinking about the long run. Even after attaining independence, if the people are right at heart and mind, then the whole economy and the whole functioning of the system will be smooth and easy, right? Rhyme scheme is, there's not really a rhyme scheme. This is written in free verse without any rhyme scheme. So this has no rhyme scheme. The main figure of speech here is personification, because he's, sorry, I missed out favorite line. Which is your favorite line? In the poem. Definitely where the mind is without fear, right? That is the favorite line, because that's the essential prayer he's making, that people are functioning without any fear. I told you the central idea. Figure of speech is, it is a personification. You can say that he is giving human-like quality to, to so many. He's giving human-like quality to the mind, to the clear stream of reason, not losing its way, where tireless striving stretches its arms, giving a human quality, right? These are all examples of personification. There are other figures of speech also. You can write about them, but you can pick one. Special features of the poem. This is definitely an imagery, you can visualize, because he's using the words where. You can visualize that he's hoping and looking at a country, at a world which is where the minds are without fear, which has people who are literate and fearless. So, imagery is one. It's a very reflective poem. It conveys strong feelings for the people of the country, and it's a very patriotic, extremely patriotic poem. It's a poem written by a believer, so it instills a lot of faith and belief in you when you're reading it. So you believe in the power of the Almighty. So it's a very spiritual, positive approach to prayer. Why do you like the poem, or why don't you not like the poem if you dislike it? I like the poem because it's deep, it's sensitive, it conveys the message of speaking to God directly. It conveys the attitude of positivity. It conveys a rational approach, scientific attitude. It conveys a very modern outlook, despite being, despite being traditionally rooted. It's a very modern outlook. So I like the poem for all these reasons. You can have your own reasons. Okay, so 9 and 10 is actually something that you should be doing on your own. I'll give you quick, hinters here. Imagine that you have to deliver a speech on the occasion of Independence Day or Republic Day in the school assembly. Since Independence Day is nearer, we'll consider Independence Day. Prepare a speech to deliver on India of my dreams. Use the following steps. Greeting and salutation. Hello and welcome everyone to the name of your school's Independence Day celebration. Self-introduction. I am your name, head boy, head girl of the name of your school, studying in class. Welcoming you all to the Independence Day celebration. Introduction of the topic, India of my dreams. You're talking about, the country that you're hoping, India. So introduce India. What is India in your dream? What is the ideal, perfect image of India in your dreams? Elaborate the topic with examples. You can talk about corruption and how you want to fight it. So your India of your dreams is free of corruption, and where the you can give an example of where the traffic police is not bribing you to let you go if you break a signal, where people are educated and concerned enough that they don't break a signal. So India of my dreams is going to be both the citizens and the executive, the politicians, the workers, the civil service officers. Both are going to be, free of corruption. Only then will we achieve the India of our dreams. It's not going to be a one-sided process. You can give many more examples like that. Conclusion. This can only happen if the youth of the country, if the youngsters of the country, if students like you and others can come together and, work towards it. So conclusion, you can emphasize on the importance of guiding and training the youth of the nation, because they are the majority, in the country. And eventually thank the audience for listening to you, for being here. I appreciate your presence. Thank you for listening to me. I hope we can all make a difference in whichever way we can. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Right? That's how you're going to outline your speech. Next, read the short story written by Rabindranath Tagore, The Kabuliwala or The Homecoming, and you can work. It's an additional information that it has nothing to do with, it's going to give you a very good approach to write your answers in the paper, but this is definitely not going to be directly asked about in the exam. So this is voluntary. If you want, you can work on it. Okay, with that we are done with the first poem. I hope you understood, and if there's any other questions, please write it in the comments. We'll address it. Go through all of this again, listen to the video again, and maybe write it down this time, the answers, in another book, and maybe, try to not read it and write it in your own words once you've understood, and see how well you do. Okay, all the best. We'll be back with the next chapter soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon to never miss any new updates.